go to Daybreak this morning. Peter Obi berates Supreme Court, INEC over 2023 election, says rulings contradict evidence of election rigging, identity theft, false claim of technical hitch. Court affirms authenticity of Governor Peter Mbah's NYSC certificate on page 6.
This Nigeria, Obi presidency disagree over Supreme Court ruling. LP candidate trust in judiciary undermined. FJ, your case watery and unreasonable. Right on the stories, the police to deploy 40,000 personnel in Kogi Guba polls. IGP warns. Okay, I think violence makers to stay away.
All right, daily assets. Supreme Court ruling. Obi vows to continue fight for better Nigeria. Court ignores overwhelming writing evidence. Bloodbath in Benue as gunmen killed 27, robs cause, and that's another story there.
The Daily Times, like Atiku, Obi shreds Supreme Court judgment. Presidency mocks him. Apex Court treated forgery, perjury, ID theft with levity, he claims. Tinubu government spending money recklessly while ordinary Nigerians suffer. Coalition speaking there.
All right, let's look at leadership amid cash crunch. Federal government asks varsities, others to remit 40% revenue. Students, lecturers kick, say deduction dangerous to system. Schools decline comments on IGR, and that's coming above that. You also see court reserves judgment in Kano governorship appeal.
The Daily Independent, insurance industry experts play down 50 billion naira capital base risk-based approach, and you have other riders to that story as well. Supreme Court breached Nigerians' trust in the judiciary. P2B speaks.
Nigerian News Direct, CBN borrowing to banks increased by 466% to 268.3 billion. Manufacturers' debt to banks hit 6.98 trillion in June, and that's coming from CBN. Two feared dead as diesel explosion rocks Canadian High Commission in Abuja.
The Nigerian pilot, we have not given up on restructuring. Afenifere speaking. Bayelsa APC now empty, says former acting governor Say Barugu on page 2.
And People's Daily looks at terrorists, kidnappers plotting to undermine confidence in security. Federal government urges media not to fall prey. And then you also want to look at that story. Again, PDP urges INEC chairman to remove Silver Ago as Imorec to avert crisis on page 2.
The First News, a newspaper, 2 killed as explosion rocks Canadian High Commission in Abuja. Sad one there. And then you have Supreme Court judgment, Peter Obi presidency, APC trade words. Obi knocks Apex Bank, says ruling undermines Nigerians' trust in judiciary. Okay, you have to have other stories on Bisa Band there.
Yeah. Well, this day looks at Obi, Supreme Court's affirmation of Tinubu's beginning of our quest for a better Nigeria. You also want to look at that story there. Court clears Mbah's certificate forgery, lashes NYSC for fraudulent design, suppression, misrepresentation of facts, and $5 billion Train 7 NLNG project reaches 52% completion level.
The Daily Sun. Boko Haram horror in Borno, Katsina insurgents behead 13 farmers, kill 9, kidnap others in separate attacks. 1 killed, soldiers missing as gunmen strike in Niger, burn vehicles. A very sad one there. And then you have anxiety as a court reserves judgment in Kano governor's appeal. Sacks Kokwazo as Kano rep, declares NNPP's deity.
The Guardian looks at less than 30% of registered voters will decide. Bayelsa Imo Kogi polls is an interesting one, and that's on page 6. You look at that voter turnout, and then there you find Bayelsa registered voters across the states. Talked about insecurity amongst others. But drawbacks of dollarization of the Nigerian economy. Nigeria needs $7.6 billion to restore oil production to 2.1 million per barrel.
The Nigerian Tribune is also leading with Guba poll, 40,000 police personnel for Kogi. You have details on page 6 as IGP risks riot act to perpetrators of violence and visits Bayelsa. Court finds NYSC 5 million naira, confirms Mbah's NYSC certificate authentic on page 2.
Daily Trust is taking its toll on the front page with Israel. It says Israel kills 10,022 Palestinians in 4 weeks. One child killed every 10 minutes. Gaza becoming graveyard for children. UN Secretary General. You also want to look at that story there. Bayelsa governorship cracks with widening PDP, APC as heavyweights shun rallies.
The New Telegraph also has this story. Court declares birth certificate authentic, fines NYSC 5 million naira. Page 3 has the details. And then the bold one, NLC says Imo CP's redeployment not enough to stop planned strike as 5-day ultimatum expires. Insists other demands criminal grave can't be wished away. On page 3 as well.
The Blueprint is looking at that travel advisory story and says federal government tackles U.S. over travel advisory, assures on security investment, urges media to amplify efforts to secure Nigeria, plans massive value reorientation campaigns, and that's on page 6. You also want to look at the price of 12.5 cooking gas, kg of cooking gas to heat, 18,000 naira by December, coming from marketers.
Okay, the business day. Federal government's borrowing from CBN still exceeds limit, stands at 4.36 trillion naira after Buhari's conversion. And then Dangote Bua Spout calls for stiffer anti-competition rules. A Supreme Court verdict, total breach of confidence. Obi speaks there. Gentlemen. Yes.
Just one me among two.
You are equal and capable. So let's move on now with the stories. Of course, the story of Obi berating court, as your paper puts it, P2B berates Supreme Court, INEC over 2023 elections. Others will say, this erodes confidence, in the judiciary. And then APC hits back, saying you don't have any proof of that everything was dealt with by the Supreme Court. Let's see your take on this.
Yeah, of course. We expected a reaction from Peter Obi after Atiku and the PDP reacted to the Supreme Court verdict, and it only came, the Labour Party reacted, but Obi needed to react because his followers needed to hear from him.
Know where he stands on all of this.
On the next line of action, which is what he did yesterday by addressing a World Press Conference. And in his reaction, you can look at it from 3 levels. 1, he berated the institution of the Supreme Court. 2, he berated INEC. 3, he charted the way forward. What's the next line of action for him as a presidential candidate and for his followers, who he rightly called the obedient movement? So we'll take it one after the other. The Supreme Court as Daybreak captured it from what he said. He said ruling, for him, the ruling is a contradiction of evidence based on the outcome of the election, which failed to identify certain things, factors that his petition, tried to draw the attention of the court to. 1, which was substantial non-compliance to the electoral guideline and rules by INEC. 2, identity theft on the part of the winner of the election and the APC, or now President Ahmed Bola Tinubu. So he laid that out, and of course, he equally spoke about why the court should have discountenanced public opinion. Public opinion is important in law. And this idea of people trying to say public opinion doesn't matter, I don't know where it came from.
But the lawyers say that as well.
The lawyers say that
you cannot
but it depends on the context where they say. People normally quote a former jurist, the late Chukwu Diko Oputa, right? He's reputed to have made that statement, that the court judgment is not based on public opinion. It depends on the context you are making it. Unkoli, without sounding immodest, I teach at postgraduate levels. I teach media law and ethics. And one of the fundamentals of media law and ethics is that all laws as we made it, has its roots and basis on morality. And morality stems from the society. You know, and even in the media, you cannot divorce the whole concept of public opinion from freedom of speech. People are allowed to talk freely, to express their views freely on the basis that in the multiplicity of ideas and opinion, the best ideas will naturally be arrived at. The best ideas are the ruling ideas in any society. So for you to say public opinion doesn't mean anything. Public opinion, everything should be based on law. You know, you are now making the law look like a mechanical, make the law to now have a kind of mechanical application. But we are dealing with human beings. Human beings are organic. Human beings are not machines. The law is not made for man. Okay? But the law is made for man, and man is not made for
when
the
it
law.
comes to election matter, they'll tell you have to prove election rigging, for instance, beyond reasonable doubt.
No,
that's the problem.
Law is not mechanistic. It's not mechanical. Law, when you talk about law, it takes many things into consideration, and that is where you talk about equity, you talk about justice, you talk about the letter and the spirit of the law. What is the intendment of the crafters of that law? You understand? Like I always say, you know, let me quote the Bible now. And God took him to the peak of a high mountain. I'm quoting the Bible. I think it's Matthew. I now said, jump. That is after Christ has fasted for 40 days and 40 nights. And I said, for I have set my angels over you, lest thou dash your feet against a stone. You see, even the devil can quote the scripture to sustain his claim. So no matter how, that's when we now talk about the letter and the spirit of the law. Because no matter which side of the law you want to take, you can always cite sections of the law to justify your claim.
But beyond this,
but at the end of the day, has that judgment met the expectation of Nigerians? Has it met it? That is the question.
That's where I want to come in now. I mean, does this also sort of show you the reason why the body language of the leaders, of the elites, of the executive could be one of, you know, regardless of what is being said in the opinion polls, you know, at the end of the day, we are in court, and the court will have its say. And that means that all of the arithmetic, all of the evaluation, all of the revelations that came out prior, before the cases and during the cases did not matter. So where then lies the voice of the people? Because it seems as if the more we speak, less is done.
Good. That is the voice of the people. They say is the voice of God. And like you say, if you say public opinion doesn't matter, I have no reason to be here. I have no reason to pick up my pen and write on issues of public interest in my newspaper as a columnist. That's where public opinion, the opinion of the people, is paramount. Every leader rule. We're in a democracy, and the leadership hold power on our behalf. We've submitted our sovereignty to the people. We are not in a dictatorship. It's only in a dictatorship that the dictator will lord it over the people. We are not slaves. We are citizens in a free society. So if as a leader you are holding power on my behalf, my opinion counts.
Well, my
opinion counts on how I am ruled, not how you want to rule.
And talking about opinion, that's why Obi has said they're ready to play opposition role in.
Yeah. That's you know we're coming down from his castigation of the judiciary. Of course, he made allusion to the valedictory speech of Mohammed Datijo, which is still you know, which the National Judicial Institute, in fact, the entire judiciary need to address.
It was a heavy-weighted conversation.
Yes, coming from somebody of his caliber. Then number two, is good that he has, irrespective of his opinion or his feeling that he was shortchanged, the judiciary didn't do its work and they didn't live up to expectation, but he has taken a new route, that is to play the role of opposition.
Does that imply
active opposition?
Opposition. And like he said, the revolution has been postponed. And he left that hanging. And that's why some newspaper interpreted that to mean hanging, the revolution continues in the next cycle of general election. But to me, the revolution should continue. It shouldn't be suspended. It shouldn't put it on hold. Because Nigeria needs, PDP seems to have run out of steam, you know, because they are not providing effective opposition to the government of the day. There are countless issues which some of us would have felt that the PDP should have been more forthcoming in holding the current administration accountable to the people. Like the issue of the supplementary budget, 2.17 trillion, and 70% of that fund is going to consumption. And when you look at some of the items on that supplementary budget, it's outrageous. You want to spend almost about 8 billion to renovate Mr. President and Vice President houses.
When we need more money in defense and security.
In Lagos, you want to buy a yacht. I heard the
but they've come out to refute it, that it was the Navy.
Yeah, the Navy has not refuted it. That is for the Navy.
Yes.
Even if it's for the Navy, is that what the Navy should be thinking about? You want a luxury yacht when you have outsourced your core responsibility to former militants in the Niger Delta. So your funds, which you are supposed to use to guide our territorial water, you are now you have so much slush funds. So
okay,
you are now
let's come back to the headline.
On yachts.
Let's come back to the headline.
So the point there is, look, Obi need to settle down, put his house in order, and play an effective role in checkmating, providing effective opposition to the current administration. There are issues that needs to be dealt with.
And the members of the Labour Party that are already, that use that to be their movement and the revolution, so to speak, to get to power, are they also providing those effective opposition in the places where they find themselves?
Yeah, they should. Like when I watched some of the faces in the press conference yesterday, I saw familiar faces like Ireti Kingebe, or the familiar one. She was there, and I feel going forward, what he should be able to do now. You know, when we talk about playing effective opposition, is the ability to bring his team together, bring all members, elected and not elected members of the Labour Party together, and give us an alternative to the APC administration.
That's for those who have not also gone over.
And how do you do that? Is to give us an ideologically based political party centered around the whole concept of labor. What is the labor movement all about? Because the APC administration, like we know it, is pandering towards what I'll call neoliberal economic policies, which is not helping us as a country. But you need to now give a counterbalance in terms of ideology. Look, if the Labour Party, if the APC is doing it this way, this is how we would have done it. This is the alternative way that would have worked and served the interest of Nigerians. And I listened to, when you look at some of the things he was trying to say, he's looking at lean government, people-centered administration. And that's what the whole idea of labor is. You know, a government that is people-centered, people-oriented, that minister to the yearnings of the people, that had the people at its core, not a government of the elite, by the elite, for the elite.
Okay, so we have
those are the things. Those are the things he should focus on: building an ideologically based political party that can serve as a counterpose.
All right, let's look at the issue.
The APC administration.
I hear you loud and clear, but I remember one of the issues that Majid raised here was the fact that the other side of the camp, which is Labour, was meant to be proffering opposition in the parliament, have also been weakened. It seems that their voices are less, and they've joined the boys. But that's another conversation for another day. But let's look at the story coming from Benue. Just a few weeks, barely a few weeks, where you saw them take down bank after bank and robbed in broad daylight. Again, there's been an attack, and 27 people have been said to be killed. Broad daylight robbery in Benue State again. One would really wonder and worry what's really going on now.
Is to me, when the state of insecurity in a country increases, like we are witnessing in Nigeria, it shows the level of desperation of our citizens, who will do anything for a morsel of meal. There's a disturbing, in relation to what you are saying, which indicate the level of desperation by the average Nigerian citizen. There's a trending video, I came across, trending but very disturbing, that I came across about 2 days ago, where a fuel tanker, fully loaded, overturned after hitting an 18-seater bus. Many of the victims were lying lifeless on the road.
From the accident?
From the accident.
From the bus.
You saw the video?
Yes.
Yes, from the accident. Many were lying lifeless on the road. Some still had life and were just gasping for breath, calling for help. But rather than those who witnessed it to go to help the victims of that accident, they were looking for buckets, jerrycan, to go and scoop fuel. The humanity in us is gone as a result of the economic condition in the country. People are scrambling for what they can eat, for their daily bread, self-sustenance, in such a way that life means nothing anymore. That is the problem. And it is as a result of some of the policies of the federal government, which is driving the average Nigerian citizen into poverty. And that is what we are experiencing. The level of poverty in the country today is so mind-boggling that people are willing to go into all kinds of crimes in order to just have a daily bread, because the opportunities of having a livelihood is becoming limited by the day. So the level of desperation is very high.
What about the dead public health emergency service system? I mean, you also want to look at that, and they probably think by the time help gets here, you saw the fire service get to the fire, the arson that happened in Abuja here, almost at the tail end. The building had already gone to the ground. I think what was left was a name song, and people were saying, we do not have a fire service emergency agency. So where do we now look at the institutions, the public system also providing service? Because it's one thing for them to say, let's call for help. It's another thing for help to come in time.
That is what we need. See, a country doesn't grow if you don't build your institutions. What we've had in Nigeria over the time is you are building individuals, you are building strong men instead of building strong institutions. We should be able to build institutions that outlive the strong men in government. When you don't build institutions, the country is bound to suffer. You are bound to have failures in various segments of the country. Institutional failure only lead to national failure. You understand? So we need to build institutions like the fire service you are talking about in a city like Abuja. It didn't happen in one hamlet. It happened in the middle of the city. And for you to say that the first responder, the fire service, the police, and all that will not respond effectively to that emergency. What happens? What do you think the situation would have been like if it had happened in a place like Karo or Nyanya or Jikoe, other hamlet or satellite towns, within the city? So it's a call for us to begin to look at our institution. How can we make them more effective and responsive to the need of the average citizen, to our statehood as a country.
Dr. Maho, let's go back to election matters now. In 4 days' time, we'll be having off-cycle election in 3 states, and on the pages of paper, one story is dovetailing into the other. Police has deployed 40,000 police personnel, and the IGP is reading Riot Act to anyone who wants to perpetrate violence, but we do know that as we speak, violence is happening in all these states, and people are complaining, the contestants are not happy, voter apathy. People think some of these violence may cause voter apathy. And then we also have the CP of Imo has been redeployed, because of this election as well. And Labour is saying, no, that's not enough for them to share try. So one story is dovetailing into the other. So let's analyze all of this now.
It's Gubapo, 40,000 police personnel for Kogi. See, as far as I'm concerned, the two most violent states in Nigeria as of today is Imo, 1, followed by Kogi, 2. Why? These 2 states are violent as a result of the personality of the political figures heading this state. You can, if somebody, a politician, have a peaceful disposition, it will tell in his action, in the environment where he operates. But if he's violent, it will equally show. So Imo and Kogi are only a reflection of the political disposition of the political leaders of this state. Are we preparing for war that INEC would, or rather the police would deploy 40,000 policemen
for one state,
for just Kogi state alone? And I don't think it tells well of the person of Yahaya Bello. And from the report we are getting from the state, it shows that they are prepared for violence. So the police have no choice but to want to match violence for violence.
Our military is already gone ahead.
Yes, politics is not war. And our politicians should not, turn election and electioneering into a theater of war, which is what is playing out. The situation we are talking about Kogi here, the situation in Imo, and from report we are even getting, is even worse. It's scandalous what we are hearing, because the voice of the opposition in Imo State, for instance, seems to have been totally crushed. Opposition leaders in the state, they are even telling us, from what we are hearing, I was not there, but I believe most of the report coming there, that look, there is no opposition poster or billboard in the whole of Imo State. So it calls for concern. Politics is not, when we talk about democracy, this is not the democracy
that we envisaged. All right, Doctor.
People should be able to exercise their franchise in an open, free, fair contest. Yes. That's what democracy is all about. And where that is lacking, it calls for a lot of concern.
Okay, while people are still talking over the litigations, that trailed the presidential election in 2023 and other elections as well, we do hope that without violence, we may have less litigation, and that's why all of these are important. Thank you so much, Dr. Austin Maho, for being our reviewer this morning and for doing justice to the story.